Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next session of our Iris live streaming sessions, which goes live over our YouTube channels, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And today, just before we get started, I just wanted to say, purple, obviously, happy International Women's Day to all you lovely ladies out there. Sorry, Steve, but
no, it's all right.
Happy International Women's Day to you too. You might celebrate it as well. So as per usual, if you're watching this live, please, if you could just put hashtag live in the comments. If you're watching it later on demand, if you could just put hashtag replay. And if you could put where you're listening from as well, and where you're watching from, that'd be great, so we can see which platform is working better for us. So today is all about. So I've got to get a bit serious today, Steve. It's not like me, is it? But
it's not like you, Bev. No,
not like me. We've got to talk about money laundering, or to be honest, anti-money laundering.
We don't want to say actually it's anti. Yeah, we don't want to. We're not giving tips on how to money launder.
Exactly. Like definitely not. But let's just do a bit of intro first. So you all know who I am. I'm Beth Flanagan. So accountant for a long time, and now working for Team Iris. I'm the senior accounting market specialist here at Team Iris. So Steve, do you want to just do a quick intro for yourself, please?
Yeah, certainly. I've been working with accountants for over 25 years. It's quite scary when I say that. But I've been at Iris now for 13 years, and I specialise in the sort of anti-money laundering software, but also other bits like the accountancy suite and things like that.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
So AML, anti-money laundering. So this affects any business that's in the financial sector. And if you're in the financial sector, if that's your business, which obviously our audience will be, Steve, or bookkeepers and accountants, they will need to register for AML, for the AML scheme. So when I was in practice, I was registered with my regulatory body. So that was covered under them. But you may be registered with HMRC. So HMRC is one of the 28. So there's 28 supervisory bodies that are under the anti-money laundering scheme. So what does financial services mean then? We've already said that covers accountants and bookkeepers, but it could also cover tax advisors, auditors, insolvency practitioners. So basically anybody that deals with, any business that deals with other clients that we deal with the money and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely covers us under the accountants and bookkeepers umbrella. And what does AML, what does money laundering mean? So I'm just going to read this because I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to read it what the actual official terminology is. So it is a commercial transaction, a series of commercial transactions in order to clean the money. For example, money placed in a business and disguised as sales in order to camouflage where it actually came from. So it's quite scary, to be honest. And, these days we've got to be so careful anyway as accountants. We've got to be proper squeaky clean, know everything. We do the books, we see all the transactions. So we are really right at the heart of all of this to be able to spot and to try and spot if something like this has happened, because we've become part of the trail, don't we? And we don't want to get involved in anything like this. But yeah, AML compliance, it's the prevention of money laundering, terrorist financing, fraud, and other financial crimes. And Steve, I've got the top 7 flags what accountants can look out for. The first one is secretive clients who avoid personal contact. Now, I don't think I ever had any of these, because I made it my mission that whenever I used to take a new client on, I always used to make sure that I got to know them. So that, this thing that's banded around KYC, know your client, and the customer due diligence, you've definitely got to do that as a client. So for example, if somebody contacts you on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever, or on your website, can you be my accountant? Yeah, all right. Have you got your ID checks? No, I ain't got any, but I really need you to do my books. That sounds a bit dodgy to start with, doesn't it? That they don't want you to see them or meet them or have any ID documents from them. Secondly is unusual transactions. So these are like unexplained or inconsistent transactions. So like we said, you as the accountant bookkeeper, you'll be predominantly in charge of your books. So I used to do bookkeeping for my clients. So I could see everything, all the sales invoices, all the purchase invoices, all the money's in, all the money's out, all the bank statements. So we're looking for unexplained and inconsistent transactions. Something's like, I don't know what that is. What, like that's not consistent with how this business usually trades. Thirdly, unusual source of funds. So this is like large amounts of cash or private funding. So if you were doing your client's books and you saw, and that their average sales value could be like, I don't know, 1,200 quid, 1,500 quid. All of a sudden you see 20 grand cash being paid in. It's like, whoa, what's this? I can't see any sales invoices that match to that. So what is this? This is unusual, and it's an unusual large amount. Number 4, transaction has unusual features. So what I mean by this is like unexplained urgencies. So I don't know, like they're asking you, like they paid something in very quickly, and again, it goes back to that unusual source of funds. Again, you don't know what it is. It's something that's happened very quickly, and there's no explanation around it. Number 5 could be geographical concerns. So this is unexplained connections, maybe with other countries. So if I'm just speaking off the top of my head here, Steve, if one of our accountants is dealing with a fish and chip shop, for example, and I had a fish and chip shop, but this is not actual for this client, just like, you know, I'm making this up. If a fish and chip shop suddenly has money in from Russia, for example, somebody in Russia has not bought
fish and chips.
So,
yeah, with the old both, yeah.
So there's going to be some geographical concerns there, isn't there? A couple more then. Politically exposed persons. So we've come across this, PEPs. So these are individuals and their families as well that are in high positions, and they're usually can be more vulnerable to corruption and could pose a higher risk of money laundering. So we're going to come on to the demo of our software that can make you compliant accountants and bookkeepers, which you 100% need to be. Because obviously this is serious stuff that we're talking about. So you need to make sure that you're covered. But when you do your checks and you know your clients and your customer do due diligence, it's always a mouthful to say that, isn't it? Customer due diligence. It could come up showing that your client's a PEP. So therefore you need to then decide if you want to go ahead with them or do enhanced checks on that client. And the last one of the flags that I think that people need to look out for is the ultimate beneficial owner. The beneficial owner is unclear of the business. So what I mean by this is a company may ask you as an accountant to create like a complex ownership structure. So therefore they could, they're trying to attempt to disguise criminal activities and to carry out the financial crime. So I know this sounds all serious and all dark, but this is what it is, money laundering. And in the accounting world, it's a really good opportunity for these criminals to be able to do money laundering through a business, set a business up and do it. So here's what to look out for then. We've just gone over some of them, but transactions. So like we said, you do your record keeping, your accountants and bookkeepers out there. You see everything. You should literally see everything. So you need to be looking when you're doing the record keeping at the transaction patterns, seeing if anything's inconsistent, anything's unusually large, anything that's unexplainable. Senders of recipients as well. So like if there's money coming in and there's a variation of names, so the names keep changing every time you receive something from that person, that's also looking a little bit dodgy. And like we said, any unusual cash transactions. And I don't know if you've heard of this, Steve, as well. Have you heard of the term smurfing before?
I've heard of the term.
Yeah, it's not those little blue characters, although they are Smurfs, but so in anti-money laundering terms, this is the most common form of money laundering. And this method involves breaking up large amounts of cash into many smaller deposits, and then they spread these out into deposits to try and avoid detection that they're money laundering.
Like under £10,000 or whatever, loads of little ones.
Yeah, look, 1,000 here, 500 here, and stuff like that. So they try and break it up. So that's what's known as smurfing in the money laundering world. Another one as well that sort of my regulatory body used to say to us to look out for is like your clients. Like again, you do the books as the accountant, and if you're talking to your clients and they're like they're living extravagantly, like they've got the top of the range BMW or Range Rover, they've got like Armani suits on and stuff like that, and it's like, how are they paying for that? Because I do the books and I can see that they're not taking the dividends or the payroll out to pay for that. So just other things like that to look out for. So that's like the scary bits, but we have to tell you, sorry. But when you are an accounting firm, you must have an MLRO, and that stands for Money Laundering Reporting Officer. And that's just an employee within your business. If you're a sole trader, it could be yourself. One director, it's going to be you. But you're then sort of automatically appointed to oversee your firm's compliance with the AML regulations, and you've got to then act on whether there's going to be knowledge, or if you see that there is knowledge or you suspect there is money laundering, then at that point you could decide to create what's called a SAR, which is a suspicious activity report, and we're going to go through that in a little bit with Steve. But before we go on to the demo, which I know that you're all really excited to look at, and I am too. Again,
I am too.
just a couple more things, Steve, and then it's over to you. But like what you should look at to prevent money laundering, this is for you to protect yourself as an accountant. Stay alert to the warning signs that we've just given to you. So everything we've just said, just keep those in your mind all the time, even if you've got to write it down or put a piece of paper outside of your desk if you can't remember them all. But stay alert to all these warning signs. Ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions to your clients. Like I said, if you see that 10 grand cash coming into the bank account, you've got to do something with it. Obviously, double entry bookkeeping, it's got to go somewhere. And if you don't know what it is, you've got to ask your clients. And if they're acting a bit suspicious, then, you know, this could be a warning sign of money laundering. And when you speak to your clients, when they give you answers to this stuff that you're asking, make sure that you as the accounting firm document the answers that you've been given, just so you are, you know, clear and you've got that audit trail, just in case it is money laundering and sort of the client, you know, the SAR has to go in, that you as the accountant, you've covered yourself, that you can see that you asked them, this is the response that you got. So make sure you protect yourselves. And then also follow your firm's internal policies and procedures to consider whether that you do need to make a SAR. So from all this, I don't want to scare you, but it is out there. There are criminals out there, naughty people. And like we said, accounting practices are quite vulnerable for these dodgy business owners to create businesses and to do money laundering within these businesses that you may look after. So they will get an accountant that, you know, they might think they're a bit dodgy and therefore they're not going to pay for an accountant. They do. That's why they try and hide it. So you need to be protected. You need to be registered with one of the 28 governing bodies under AML. You need to have an MLRO. You need to have your own internal policies and procedures. And what we've got here at Iris, we have got AML. We've got our AML product, which Steve's going to show you now. So it really does help you to go through everything that we've just covered. So Steve, I'm going to hand over to you. Would you like me to put your demo screen on?
I'd love you to put the demo screen on. Thank you, Bev.
There you go. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, so yeah, so this is the Elements platform, cloud-based platform, and the sort of AML module I'm going to be showing you today has been out for nearly 2 years now. So when we actually log in, the first thing to sort of talk about when we talk about the sort of Elements module is, for those of you out there who are using the Iris Accountancy Suite, the Elements platform actually does what we call dual synchronization. So what do I mean by that? Is if we look at all of your clients, the first thing is, those of you using the Iris Accountancy Suite, is we will take all of your client data, as you can see here in the desktop, and move that into here for you. Yep. So all of your clients will get merged over. And then it doesn't really matter where you onboard, say, a new prospect or a new client, because I'll come back to prospects later, is that client then, if it's, you know, if you create and download, say, a limited company with the directors, that will then make its way into the desktop, or vice versa. What you can also do from here as well is access the Elements platform as well. So if you need to do some AML checks or whatever, you've got a nice little link in there to get into the actual Elements module. I'm now going to talk about the dashboard side of things. This becomes really, really, really powerful if you start, say, a risk assessment, say, with an organization or an individual. So what do I mean by that? You can see here that I've got 12 risk assessments in progress. Yeah, so I've got distracted for whatever reason. So you can see here we've got Elizabeth. We've started the risk assessment for Elizabeth, but for whatever reason, we haven't finished that risk assessment. So I'm going to come back to that later and show you how easy and quick it is to actually risk assess either individuals or businesses. Also, Bev touched on it earlier, knowing your clients as well. I'll talk to you about how we can help you out with sort of answering the questions about knowing your clients as well. What we've also got in here as well is risk assessment reminders. Now, this is quite a key one. This becomes really powerful maybe next year, because if you risk assess me, Steve Murray, and I'm a high risk, then you might then, by default, we will remind you in 6 months to assess me again. You can change that date to say, well, wait a minute, we're going to do it every 3 months or whatever. That's your call. But it's about reminding you, because in my experience, if you do get a visit from your professional body, they might say to you, it's all well and good assessing Steve, risk assessing Steve now, but are you reminding yourself to do Steve again, say in 12 months' time?
And that is brilliant that the automation is there, because us accountants are mega busy. We've got VAT returns, we've got deadlines coming out of the ears, to be honest, Steve. Payroll, VAT returns, year-end accounts, personal tax returns. So, you know, we know this is important, but because it's not a day-to-day accounting job, it can
Exactly
get
that.
left. So to have that automatic reminder is brilliant.
Absolutely, and a lot of accountants in my experience might want to link risk assessments to maybe doing big jobs like year-end accounts or something
Yeah,
like that. In my
exactly.
experience,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then it's you're going to be having a conversation with them.
Yeah.
So why not then link that to doing your risk assessment again?
Yeah.
So that's going to be. You can also say, what have I got to do in the next 7 days and things like that as well. It's not about, all right, I've got these 2 to do now. Then you go into that particular business record and deal with it.
Yeah.
What you've also got is optional ID checking. This is optional. So if you wanted to do a whole batch of PEP stroke sanctions stroke individual checks, making sure everybody lives in the, they do live where they say they live. You can also do in here a sort of check of all of your individuals at the same time if you want to do that. I've only got 4 in there, but if you want to run a risk assessment, imagine if you had 1,000 individuals in there, you can check rather than going into Bev's record. Let's check to see if Bev's politically exposed and she does live where she says she lives. And you can do them all at once, saving masses of time. We tested that on 50,000 individuals.
Wow.
So that's how quick it can be, and then it will then give a result, and then you might get a shock. Can't believe Bev's high.
I'm not a PEP. I'm not a PEP. Now, don't everybody on watching this video go and test me, because I'm not.
No, I'm not. I know. But you may get a surprise. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You may get a surprise in there, Bev. So yeah. Also, you touched on suspicious activities as well.
Yeah.
That again is anybody can log a suspicion within the business if you've got multiple users using it, but only the MLRO can make a decision on what to do.
Yeah.
So I can log a suspicion if I'm working on AML, but I'm not. But Bev, you might be the MLRO.
Yeah.
You make that decision. Then I might be. You might think, oh, Steve's been a bit OTT there. Like, then you make the decision saying, no, Steve, I don't think we should do a suspicious activity. But then again, you might think, actually, Steve's got onto something here. Let's do a SAR.
So can any of my team then, if I was still in practice, submit their suspicion here, and then me as the MLRO can then say, right, yes or no, we're taking it forward?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Brilliant.
So imagine now, it doesn't matter which record I'm in. If I go into any record in here, Bev, if I just show my client list, why is it not? Yeah, so I could go into anybody's record in here. It doesn't really matter where I am in this particular record. What I can do in here in the AML side of things, if I go into the actions, a new suspicion.
Brilliant.
I'm not going to do it, but that's how I could then potentially log a suspicion. You will then get a flag as the MLRO in here. I've not got any reminders in here, but you'll get a flag in here, a notification telling you that Steve has flagged that,
And,
so then
is it just a bit of text that the employee would write that they've found something? I've just found a really large transaction in ABC Limited's bank account. Can you have a look type thing?
Not just text actually, Bev. What I could also do, I could upload some supporting documentation, a spreadsheet or something like that as well.
Bank statement or something.
Yeah, anything to support why I think you should do a SAR, Bev.
Brilliant.
If you're the MLRO, so it's fantastic at that as well.
Yeah.
What we've also got in here, so that's your sort of dashboard side of things. But now let's talk a little bit about risk assessments and KYC and optional ID checks that you might want to consider doing as well. So if we, when we talk about Elizabeth here, let's now, we got distracted. We didn't finish off risk assessing Elizabeth. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Great. We just log into Elizabeth's record in here. That takes us into the AML piece. And then all you do then in here in risk assessments, these are the risk assessment questionnaires, is you then simply go through and continue. And your job as the person assessing Elizabeth, clearly you need to know Elizabeth, because obviously you can't really answer these questions unless you know who Elizabeth is. But your job as the person who's answering these questions is to go through answering these questions. What will happen at the end when you go through answering all these risk assessment questions when we get to the end is we will then give a risk level based on the answers that you provide.
Low, medium, or high.
Exactly that, Bev.
And Steve, are those questions already pre-populated in there? So
absolutely,
an accountant don't have to make these up; they're already there, ready for them. Yeah,
exactly that. Yeah, we work with 300 accountancy practices. So some practices, ICAW practices may insist, oh, you've got to ask this. ACCA might have a slight difference on that, the slight variations. So what we've done, we've combined the knowledge and then we put in these risk assessment questions.
Brilliant. So all professional bodies are all being merged in here. So this is compliant with all professional bodies and
pretty much, pretty much, yes. And also in here, when we talk about, it's not just about risk assessments in here. Nice one. clients as well, Bev. Risk. I don't know what's going on there.
I think your internet's dropping a bit, Steve.
For you, right? Yeah, your KYC assessments. I know, but you got your KYC as well. That's the other thing that you might want to consider doing as well, is you're knowing your client's assessments. Now, these slightly differ based on the entity type. So these are KYC based on individual, but you've also got templates for KYC for charities or limited companies. So there's a slight variation as well. What you've also got is other options as well in here. So if I just search for me in here, just so I'll show you this. So if I go into any particular record in here, you've got optional AML checks that you might want to consider doing as well. And that's where you might want to do an ID check on somebody, just to check to see if they do live where they say they live, making sure that they're not politically exposed. And we work with TransUnion, by the way, if you're wondering.
So they're like enhanced checks where it's a paid thing, yeah. But it's really good because you've got that extra security that you know that they're okay.
Exactly that. So you can either do it at the individual level here, Bev. Yeah. So and a lot of people love this, especially for prospects.
Yeah.
You know, because you might put, say, Steve Murray in there, but then you might think, well, wait a minute, I don't really know Steve that well. So you might think, let's just check to see if Steve is not politically exposed. You know, so these are optional ID checks
or dodgy.
you might want to do. Or make sure Steve Murray's not dodgy. Exactly that. Exactly that. But also you've got other optional checks. You might want to credit check me as well, and it doesn't affect the credit score as well. Again, it sits there as an optional check as well. Yeah. So again, you've got that option. And then if you want to download that report, that will give us sort of about a 3-page report. But you can also credit check businesses as well, Beth. It's not just about checking individuals, and that's why a lot of people really like that for prospects. Just check them out, making
that's sure really good.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely.
That's really, really good. Yeah.
You can also do international checks as well. So that's something else you can do. And also what we call a HR screen check for individuals, which is almost a combination of the above. Right, so you can AML check them, credit check them at the same time, which gives a really nice, detailed sort of check on individuals. You can also upload documentation. This is another good one, because if you want to upload like passports and images of passports and driving licenses, utility bills and everything else, you can choose to upload documentation, and that then links to that particular client record, whether it be the individual or the business.
Yeah, and obviously our Elements AML product that we're showing you right now is fully GDPR compliant. So because obviously that's sensitive data, it's absolutely
of course.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Yes. Yeah. So we encrypt everything. So don't worry about any of that. Yeah. So it's all encrypted. So don't worry about GDPR. But good question, Beth. Good question, Beth.
I'm an accountant. You have to ask these things.
Absolutely. But also we can raise suspicion from there as well. You know, so so if you wanted to raise suspicion from in there as well.
Brilliant.
What you've also got as well is we've got some, if you've got some great help and guidance here as well, how do I do firm-wide risk assessments? You've got fantastic help and guidance. And all I did to get to this was hit the little question mark. So if you, how do a firm-wide risk? How do I do a firm-wide, which I'm going to come back to in the sense of the compliance piece in a minute anyway. But if you want to know what you really need to do in the sense of firm-wide risk assessments or using the software just in general, we've got fantastic guidance and help there.
Brilliant.
Moving into the compliance side of things now. So we've talked about the dashboard, brilliant at reminding you to reassess, brilliant if you want to do a batch of enhanced due diligence checks, great at looking at any suspicions and everything else. But I'm going to come back to suspicions later as well. But the other big piece of work we did was practice compliance. So let's show you that. So what we've got in practice compliance is the firm-wide risk assessment. So again, we do know that you may get quizzed if you get a visit on annually doing a firm-wide risk assessment. So again, we're going to help you out in there by saying to you, there you go through that by telling us how many clients you've got, how many sitting high, medium, low. So it's an annual thing about doing a firm-wide risk assessment. So again, you've got to do this annually. But also, we're going to remind them a lot in 12 months' time to do it again in the dashboard.
And that's brilliant.
Yep, absolutely. What we do also in the sense of the compliance, it's not only about just firm-wide risk assessment, which is brilliant, but also this is just where you're telling us who is the MLRO? So it's just a place of just keeping that information all in one place as well. Personal development. This is an interesting one. Again, you may get quizzed about, are you sort of keeping up to date CPD courses for keeping up to date with maybe changes in compliance for anti-money laundering and everything else? So you can add your events in here and then tick who's actually been on the course within your particular organisation or practice.
So you've got the full audit trail of everything. So if you did get checked, which anybody can, like by their regulatory body at any time, like you've got the audit trail of who the MLRO is, who's done the training, when they did the training. That's for the team, but then also for all your clients as well, when you last did them, if you did an enhanced check, when the next one's due. It's brilliant.
Exactly that. It's everything. It's about not sort of missing a trick, really. Exactly. But also in here, we've joined forces with, for those of you who don't, we've joined forces with the Mercia Group as well. So for 54 quid a year per user, you've got access to all of this training content.
Right.
So if you want to play these courses, but also you've got tests that users can sit as well. So once you've played these particular compliance courses, you've got up to 5. You can sit the test 5 times.
I was going to say that accountants love a certificate. So
absolutely, you've got to get 80%. So you might fail. I'm not saying you fail the first one, but you've got up to 5 goals per test as well, and it will keep an audit of that as well.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic as well. So you can look at the amount of content's just beyond. So you've got all of that content per user. That's all it costs. Then, so if we've been on a course, then we just then reflect that back into here by adding that event in there and tick who's been on it. So it's about having everything in one place. And then you talk about your professional memberships. That's again just where you tell us about an ACCA practice, a HMRC practice, or whatever. So it's about having everything in one place. Also, you've got your policies and procedures as well. We've given you a template. Let's emphasize the word template.
Oh, brilliant.
So we'd strongly recommend you, if you're going to use this, to delete the word example at the top, edit it to make it specific to your particular practice or organization. And it's really simple to do that. You just simply edit the current version and then just tweak that. You might want to then copy and paste what you may already have, maybe held in some Word documents or something like that, but make it practice specific.
Yeah. But that's a good starting point if somebody's just started up in business, an accounting firm, and they've not got one. So that's a good starting point that they can start with. Check it over with their regulatory body to make sure they're covered with everything that they need to be, and then you're good to go.
Exactly, because they may ask you and quiz you for that, Bev. They might say, look, can you send us a copy of that, please?
Exactly.
But it's a great template, a great starting point for any practice. We touched on suspicions earlier, suspicious activities. So if I show you in here, this is now suspicious activities in here. So I've just put made up bank fraud or whatever you think the suspicion is in there. But also if we log into that suspicion, anybody can log a suspicion. Yeah, anybody can log that. But I've not uploaded anything here, but you touched on it earlier. I could upload a bank statement as an example for you, Bev, if you are the MLRO, Your job then, or the MLRO's job, if you like, is to make a decision. What are we going to do with this suspicion? So the MLRO, this is MLRO only, so nobody else gets to see this.
Right.
And it's important to point out that only the MLRO can make a decision on the suspicion. Only the MLRO can see all the suspicions as well, because you don't want everyone looking at all the suspicions.
Of course,
Bev could log one, I could log one, but we're not MLRO. Only the MLRO can see suspicions. So then it's about making that decision then. Do you want to report that to the National Crime Agency? So you're making a decision on the next step. Do we want to upload attachments like the bank statement that you touched on earlier? You want to put some notes in there about if we make a decision to actually do log a SAR to the National Crime Agency. We've also got a link to the website. It doesn't actually do the SAR as such, but at least it's logged to the website to then start that suspicious activity if you deem it necessary.
And again, that's everything in one place. So even if like you and your team member had a chat in the office, to be fully compliant, it's all in writing then, isn't it? You've got that full audit trail here rather than just a quick chat while you're making a cup of tea. It's all here, and the audit trail is fully through. You can work it through.
It's exactly that, Bev. It's all about, who's logged the suspicion, but then what's, the MLRO, the decision made on that. And quite often it might no, we're not going to do it, but then it's going to log it, it's going to audit it. It's the fact that I've logged it, but the MLRO's made a decision not to actually do anything about it. But it's all audited and logged.
And it's all in the cloud as well, which is brilliant.
It is all in the cloud as well, yes. But also in, sort of moving into, this is where it gets a bit murkier and everything else, really. I'm going to just quickly touch on the unfortunate effect if you don't sort of keep up to date with AML, and that is that's the sad fact that practices may get fined and everything else.
But this is the importance that, it is a bit murky, as you said. Is that a northern thing? Because I understand what you mean by that.
It probably is a northern thing, actually.
But we have to show the bad bits of it to make you realise that you've got to have this robust system in place so that you don't get caught. But go on, Steve, let's have a look.
Exactly that. It is a bit murky. And if you look at the fines, the fines that were sort of dished out, it was over 215 million to different organisations in 2022. Yeah. But that's just, a lot of these are banks and things like that, the big ones. But also that's the total of fines that were dished out, which is a staggering figure, really, 215 million for not adhering to AML compliance. But I think this is a bit more, this is probably more, this list here, it's more sort of like, inside era, like legal businesses, accountants, So this is now giving you a bit more of a realistic one that might affect you. Even if you're a small practice, you might also find that you are also getting smaller fines as well. So you can see, this is just to give you an idea. There's a good chance you might get, unfortunately, if you're not adhering to this, you might get maybe a £5,000 fine.
And just to point out, though, Steve, to the audience that's watching, this is not confidential information. This is on the public domain. Everybody can see this.
Exactly that. I wouldn't be sharing it if it's not in the public domain. No, it's a fair point to point out. Because this is in the public domain. Also, you can just Google it. Businesses within the UK who received AML fines, and that's what you're looking at. It took me about a minute to find this, so it is in the public domain.
But again, though, look at those fines. There's not one of them that's under. They're all thousands. Like, who's got thousands of pounds to just chuck away? You know what I mean? It's no one, and it's
exactly. So this is in the public domain. But I know it's a bit of almost like a bit of a sad note to end on, but these are facts. That
we don't want you to end up getting on that list.
Exactly. You don't want to be on that list.
You don't want to be on that list.
But that was kind of a sort of introduction, really, to AML. So to sort of recap, it's, we're going to remind you, if you get distracted, to risk assess. Also prospecting, that's quite an important one as well, is you might want to maybe check that prospect is okay from a credit, or them not PEP or whatever. But also the reminders, that's a big one, because you may get, are you setting yourself reminders to reassess? We're helping out massively on the compliance as well, with nice templates for policies and procedures, and a place to record training courses you may have been on, a place to log any suspicions. But also the other key thing is the integration piece as well. So if we edit an address, doesn't matter where we do it. If we do it in here, we edit an address in there, that will be then reflected in here. So it's that sort of integration piece as well.
So any of our clients that are currently using our accounting suite, and as this elements bolt on for AML, it all synchronizes through.
Exactly. So so what we'll do is we'll move over ABC Limited, say, with the relationships of maybe Mr. and Mrs. Smith or whatever. So that all that data does get migrated. So you don't have to mess about, creating clients, basically, because we're just going to move all that data up.
And we don't want to keep typing the same thing out. So that's really good. Thanks so much for that, Steve. That is a really good insight into our AML products. And it's lovely. Look at it. It's not boring neither. Look, it's even got a purple box on there for me. So that's really good. I've got to mention that. I don't think it worked for me, but no, but in all seriousness, though, this is a very serious subject for the financial sector, which all our clients work in. Please be covered. Please protect yourself. You will have already been registered with HMRC or your regulatory body for this, but you've just got to make sure you're covered for everything, that you're squeaky clean for every single one of your clients. And the beauty of our product is that it's all there for you. Like I said, it's a one-stop shop for your AML. from taking a client on, like Steve said, to checking them out before you even want to sign them up, to check whether they're a highly exposed political person that, you know, that then you might want to make another decision about taking them on, all the way through then to keep to risk it, to doing that risk assessment that it'll automatically tell you whether it's low, medium or high risk. Then it will remind you automatically, so you don't have to, you know, diarise it or try and remember it. It'll automatically remind you of that. And then also the enhanced parts as well, if you want to do those enhanced checks, plus the courses. I mean, we could just keep going on, but honestly, this is a really good product that every accountant should have. It really should. Steve, we've got Neil Parsons and Oliver Trigg saying hello to you as well.
Oh, hi there.
Neil's even said you're a living legend.
That's very kind of you, Neil. Yes, Neil's the MD, isn't he, of TCH, and Oliver Trigg as well.
Oh,
yes,
okay. Well, he
hello,
likes
guys.
you. And Oliver says you're a fantastic chap and you know your stuff, which
you're a fantastic chap as well, Ollie, and so are you, Neil.
Wonderful.
But thank you for saying hello, guys.
Perfect. But thanks so much, everybody, for watching. We hope you enjoyed this session. We will be live again in a couple more weeks, but thank you so much. And Steve,
I'm a living legend. Thank you very much for saying that. Living
legend. Look at that. So let me just get this off. Where's the thing on? Remove. Yeah. So thanks again, Steve. Thanks everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed this session. Yeah, it started off a bit grumpy because we had to tell you all the bad bits, but hopefully you can see the value of using Iris AML and how that will impact your practice. Have a good day, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care
all. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.